Welcome to the Tyler Werner Show, discussing all the latest in Philadelphia sports.
Hold your breath. Ball is spotted. The kick is away. And the kick is... It's good! And the Eagles win! This is that dream I talked about. They win! He's had this dream before. 61 yards! The longest kick in Eagles history. Oh, my goodness. We forgive him for the 40-yarder last week. Do you believe in miracles? Oh, my goodness. 61 yards.
And what a turn of events, ladies and gentlemen, with the Philadelphia Eagles coming out on top 27-24. And after that win, that game in particular, I'm considering renaming this show 61 Yards with Tyler Werner. Or should I go with 4th and 8?
And now, here's Tyler Werner.
And yes, ladies and gentlemen, a good day to all into the Philadelphia Eagles haven here, if you will, after that win. This is a win I know that I know already has definitely drawn some mixed feelings, without question. As it's easy to say, sit here, look at this game, and say that the Eagles kind of got away with one. All right, I mean, we could definitely say that. At the end of the day, they did what they had to do to win the game. And I know last week I sat here and said, well, this Giants team, they look dead. The Eagles, they could, after that frustrating Chiefs loss, the Eagles could come back at home in their home opener and steamroll the Giants. And they, in the early going, as things progressed, it started to look like that was the direction it was headed. Although late in the game, Eli Manning, Odell Beckham Jr. started picking apart the Eagles, who, albeit, to be fair, their defense was... They were running down to second stringers almost. I mean, obviously, Ronald Darby out. The secondary, Rodney McLeod. I mean, the secondary had its obvious holes. And they had Rasul Douglas stepping in out there. And then you got Jalen Mills, Jalen Watkins kind of floating around. And Fletcher Cox went down, day-to-day injury. And, of course, Jordan Hicks went down day-to-day. And so this Eagles team, they were kind of hanging on at the end with what they had left on defense. But throughout the game, they were holding the Giants down pretty well. And as a matter of fact, late in the second quarter before halftime, they kind of bailed out Doug Peterson's on that 4th and 8 call, which we'll discuss. We'll break it all down here on the Tyler Werner Show today. Basically, the Giants a chance at the 1 foot line, let alone maybe the 1 inch line. 4th down, and the Eagles stuff them. And that's what you want to see in a division matchup like this. You want to see physical. You want to see this physical Jim Schwartz defense. And that's what we saw for the most part, while the Eagles were healthy for the most part. They weren't necessarily sacking Eli Manning. And some of that can be attributed to Eli Manning. I mean, I guess the game plan with this ravaged offensive line was to get the ball out of Eli Manning's hands quickly. And that's kind of what they were trying to do. And early in the game, Eagles come up with a couple interceptions. While Rasul Douglas is kind of being thrown out in the woods, and there were some definite blown coverages at times. I thought, given the circumstances, he played his heart out, quote unquote. They play well. They were a bit overmatched, but for the most part, they hung on. And at the end of the day, hung on enough, whether it be by just a thread, they hung on enough to win the game. So I mean, it's easy to sit here and say, oh, they were supposed to blow this Giants team. Look, this Giants team, they were desperate. They're 0-3 now. Although I don't think that they're quite as bad as maybe, say the Browns, who are also 0-3 as usual. Surprise, surprise. It's easy to... I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. now is kind of coming back into full strength. And it's just the fact that the early part of the season. Some teams, they start slow. And that's not to say that the Giants are going to go on some kind of run here. They're pretty much done as far as I'm concerned with any playoff hopes or whatever. I don't think at this stage in his career, I don't think there's any kind of tricks that Eli Manning can pull out of the bag where this team's going to somehow make the playoffs or anything. But I don't think they're absolutely atrocious. I mean, their defense is relatively good, although not against the run, which I was pointing out last week. And sure enough, the Eagles got the run game going. And hats off to Doug Peterson on the play calling on that. For listening to the fans and acknowledging the obvious, if you will. And that obvious was that the Eagles had to establish the run game more. They had to get LeGarrette Blount going a little more, and gosh, it went great.
Gosh, it went great.
That's exactly right. I would argue they could have used LeGarrette Blount a little more. We'll get into that. But the important thing is he got going. And that's exactly what I was saying last week. Now you pissed him off because he didn't even get the ball against the Kansas City Chiefs, and they lost the game. And they threw 80% of the time. Here, they ran the ball more than they threw it, if I'm not mistaken. Ground and pound. Even Wendell Smallwood kind of being alongside LeGarrette Blount, kind of 50-50 duty here, almost in a sense. Well, not 50-50 over, but I don't know, maybe 40 and 40%, and then the 20% between Corey Clement. I don't know. I'm not getting into the math here of what happened, but you get the point. They both had 12 carries apiece, and they both were averaging over 5 yards per carry. And the offensive line is definitely, I think, kind of to credit here. Because Smallwood is usually not productive like that. I mean, he's usually been getting carries and he's not been doing anything with it, but things opened up a little more for him. Whereas I think a little earlier on, they got LeGarrette Blount going and he was going. Okay? He didn't need... I mean, it's not to take anything away from the offensive line, not to take anything away from Wendell Smallwood. I'm just calling it how I see it. And I think LeGarrette Blount started to wear... I mean, even from an early going, he was pounding the ball. He was running like he did in New England. He was running hard. He was busting some guys up. And I think they could have used him a little more. Maybe, but then again, I mean, Deuce Staley, apparently, he's the guy in charge of the running backs. And Doug Peterson, I guess, he's not... As we learned last week, apparently he's not gonna say anything like dudes like, hey, why don't we keep LeGarrette Blount out there? Why don't we keep milking him here? He's tearing it up. Why don't we keep him in there? Why don't we keep tearing it up with him? Doug Peterson apparently is not going to be a guy to do that. But at the end of the day, this run game was effective, and you can't complain about that. Whether it was Smallwood out there, whether it was Garrett Blount and Corey Clement getting a little bit of a piece of the pie again, as Doug Peterson said last week. Even though last week certainly there wasn't much of a pie of a running game, if you will. Totally different story this week, and that's a good thing to see. And it was one of those things where we better have seen it because, again, the Lions kind of tore it up in the run game against the Giants. So why couldn't the Eagles, if they got this, if they at least went out there and established the run game and tried to utilize Blount? And that's what they did. And sure, again, the Giants, they can't run the ball themselves. So this game, things kind of played out the way I would expect them offensively, defensively. I mean, I was even more. I didn't even think that the Eagles would run the ball that much. I figured, there's got to be an improvement here with the run to pass ratio, but I didn't expect that. But that's what you got. Hey, if it's working, you're grinding out that opposing team's defense, you keep going to it. It's the bottom line. So the Eagles now, they moved to 2-1. This was a huge win. I mean, just imagine, if they had lost this game, Doug Peterson, I mean, some people even still are calling for Doug Peterson's firing after that 4th and 8 call, which very well could have come back to bite him. But at the end of the day, it didn't. And I guess you take the good with the bad. The good, they got the run game going. They, for the most part, I mean, I thought Doug Peterson called a pretty good game as far as play calling is concerned. I mean, you can't complain. They were moving the ball for the most. I mean, early on, they come out back-to-back 3 and outs. Then they got to fix that because you know what? Against a better team, a team that maybe comes out more prepared. Who knows? Maybe they find themselves down 10-0, 14-0. If the Eagles' defense doesn't clamp down early on and play the way they were playing for the most part throughout the game. We're gonna listen to some Doug Peterson audio today on the Tyler Werner Show. Some of the Monday morning press conference. Darren Sproles is pretty much done for the season. I mean, hate to say it.
This guy is a special dude right here.
Yeah, as Nick Foles once said I guess that would have been the first year that Darren Sproles was here in Philadelphia. Nick Foles was the starting quarterback at the time. Darren Sproles is a special dude. He has been the last few years of this offense. I mean, I hate to say it, but this is barring a decision to come back next year, which is unlikely. I think this is the end of Darren Sproles as we know it in the NFL. Unfortunate injury. The guy's been a playmaker in the special teams game, and not only did he end up breaking his arm or whatever, he tore his ACL, and it's just like one of those things, like, boom, boom on the same play, and, I guess, maybe it's time to hang him up. I hate to say it. for Darren Sproles, but I guess that's likely the case. Out for the season. Although I hate to say there's a silver lining in it because Darren Sproles has been a great locker room leader, and I hate to see him go on IR. And he's been one of the featured weapon, I guess, if you will, the last few years on the Philadelphia Eagles. Like a guy that could, he's not a full-time back, but you never know what kind of play he could just bust off out of nowhere. But the silver lining I get is that, without him, the Eagles, they seem to go to this physical running game when he went down early in the game, and they seem to do just fine. I hate to say it, like, they don't have that gadget guy out of the backfield, it seemed, that they could maybe, throw a screen pass to. And it's a shame that he's going to be missing, but look what he did. Look what they did after he went down. They were pounding the ball on the ground without him. I can't complain too much about that. It's just like on defense when, it's not to say that every game guys are missing and the Eagles' second stringers in the secondary are going to be able to compensate for it, but they got along here. Despite missing Fletcher Cox later in the game, and despite missing Jordan Hicks, those are two key losses. And it was late in the game. I think it showed that it was getting tough to contain the Giants, and it might be very fortunate that that 61-yard field goal was nailed for that reason. Because if they got to overtime, who knows what would have happened if the Giants would have gotten the ball back again and scored a touchdown. And it would have been ball game. So I can't, I can't complain too much about how they managed with losses in this game, or with guys that were already missing. This is a division game. You can't take it too lightly. You can't, I guess, look too much into the Giants, they were 0-2. They're finished. The Eagles, they should be able to run right through them. It doesn't always work that way, especially a desperate Giants team. They had to be desperate. Doesn't mean they're any good. Doesn't mean the Eagles couldn't beat them. The Eagles did beat them. And the Giants blew it. But the Eagles now, they got another desperate team. The Chargers are 0-3. And I don't think the Eagles are going to go there and win against the Chargers. Because again, the Chargers are due for a better effort. Okay? They've had a tough early going in the schedule here. They started off against the Broncos, who look pretty good. Obviously, they just played against the Kansas City Chiefs, so that's going to be a tough one to win. Obviously, so now the Chargers here at home, they got to be desperate. I think Rivers is bound for a good effort here. And, frankly, the Eagles are coming off of an emotional big team win here at home. And I think it's going to be tough to carry that over when they go to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers this week. So I'm a desperate situation. Again, the Chargers too, they're 0-3, but I don't think they're as bad as that 0-3 seems or may sound right now. All right, it is the Tyler Werner Show. We're going to hit the first break here. And we're going to come back. Top 5 thoughts around the NFL, as we always do in the Tyler Werner Show. And we're going to listen to some Doug Peterson audio from the Monday press conference. We won't really get into this. And we want to get into the 4th and 8, if you will. Because, I mean, it could have really cost the Eagles. It didn't. But this is, again, this is where, like, between analytics guys and the offensive coordinator, like, this mumbo-jumbo, where I don't think you can lay this on, oh, well, this analytics guy said we should do this at our odds, so that's why we did it. I don't quite think it works that way. Nevertheless, it is the Tyler Werner Show. We'll come back on the other side with some more right after this.
Attention parents. Is your under 18-year-old daughter being cyberstalked by a man who identifies themselves as a grown adult male?
I want to meet you and fool around. Are you up to meeting tonight, hon? I think I would like to shower with you. We can do it in the shower, too.
If so, you need to contact Chris Hansen and Company to bust these online cyberstalkers.
How are you tonight? Why don't you have a seat there and get comfortable for that? I guess you're going to tell me next that this is the very first time you've done something like this.
Chris Hansen and the Dateline crew will take care of it. Contact us, and we will put an end to the cyber stalking that your daughter is experiencing.
Well, there's something you got to know. I am Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC, and we're doing a story on computer predators.
Busted!
Investigators are calling it the heist of the century. The grand robbery of Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs, committed by some apparently hungry NFL officials who love their balls.
When I came in Monday morning, I was shocked to learn of the news reports about the balls and the process that happened between when they were prepared and went to the officials and went to the game.
As shocked as Belichick was of the news, perhaps Brady, the last man out of the kitchen on that Sunday night, was even more shocked to hear of the news of the theft.
I have a process that I go through. It was the same process that I always go through. When I felt them, they were perfect. I mean, I wouldn't want anyone touching those. I would zip those things up and lock them away, and that's what I thought I was doing.
As Brady and Belichick up the ante on their ball security, you'll just have to pick up a pack of their meatballs the next time you hit the grocery store and enjoy just how perfect these balls really are.
Tom's personal preferences on his ball security are something that he can talk about in much better detail than I could possibly provide.
And we return on this edition of the Tyler Werner Show after the Eagles moved to 2-1, defeating the New York Giants. As I was saying earlier with the running game, Smallwood, Blunt, 12 carries apiece. Smallwood with 71 yards, Blunt with 67 and a touchdown. Pretty good. Corey Clement, near the end of the game, 6 carries for 22 yards, touchdown. You know, he pounded in a nice touchdown run, showing some flashes. Carson Wentz, again, when he has to scramble or whatever, guy's effective. And Sproles, before he was hurt, 3 carries for 11 yards. So overall, hats off to the Eagles' run game here. Smallwood, Blunt, Clement, between the 3 of them, that's 30 carries. Wentz with 6 more, and Sproles with 3. I mean, they almost 40 rushes here, and only 31 pass attempts out of Carson Wentz. 21 for 31, 176 yards, and a touchdown. Good outing. This was not a game where Wentz had to be a superstar in a sense. The way things turned out. But again, Carson Wentz, he's playing well. I mean, he's not absolutely like showing maybe Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady-esque skills quite yet. Maybe his deep ball can use a little bit of accuracy work, but thus far, in his sophomore year, he's definitely showing some improvement. So it is certainly good to see that. All right, as I mentioned, it is time to go around the NFL, on the top 5 thoughts around the NFL. Week 3 edition right here on the Tyler Werner Show. As we always do, after another week in the NFL is in the books. And so we start with number 5. And that number 5 thought around the NFL is the New England Patriots beating the Texans in a nail-biter. Could have gone either way. But at the end of the day, it was the New England Patriots coming out on top. Avoiding a 1-2 start. Moving to 2-1. An important win. Against a pretty tough Texans team. Gotta hand it to them. They're no pushover. Tom Brady, ladies and gentlemen, with 5 touchdown passes. He was 25 for 35 for 378 yards. And he currently, along with, he's above, he's currently number 1 in the NFL this year in yards, already with over 1,000 passing yards.
To me, those balls are perfect.
And, Brady, to me, these balls looking perfect. He's throwing out there for the most part. As the New England Patriots, Brandon Cooks, 5 receptions for 131 yards and 2 touchdowns. Gronk, 8 receptions, 89 yards and a touchdown. Chris Hogan, 2 touchdown receptions, 4 receptions for 68. Showing the offensive juggernaut they are without Julian Edelman. But it's next man up in New England, and they're doing pretty good out there. So, number 4 thought around the NFL this week. The Atlanta Falcons defeating the Detroit Lions as the Lions fall short of the goal line at the end of the game. They end up losing 30-26. Golden Tate came up with a catch, but was found, we weren't sure if it was a touchdown, but then he was found just short of the goal line. And as the head official would announce, by rule, there's a 10-second runoff of the clock. And that ultimately spelled the end of the game for the Detroit Lions. And ultimately, that caused them to lose the game to the Atlanta Falcons. And the Atlanta Falcons remain 3-0.
If you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
So, tough loss for the Lions. Perhaps these two teams will meet in the playoffs down the road, because the Lions have been pretty good thus far in the season. Gotta hand it to them. Number 3 thought around the NFL. It's the Washington Redskins defeating the Raiders easily, 27-10. And it's tough sometimes for a West Coast team like the Raiders to come across the coast, play an East Coast team. And now the Redskins find themselves at 2-1 after that Week 1 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. So they're right here in the mix. Right here in the mix, along with the Dallas Cowboys, who also moved to 2-1 this week after defeating the Arizona Cardinals 28-17. So Eagles, Redskins, and the Cowboys are all 2-1 in the division, while the Giants sit at 0-3. Meanwhile, number 2, the Chicago Bears upset the Pittsburgh Steelers in overtime, winning 23-17. A tough loss for the Steelers. The Steelers had a chance to start 3-0. And the Bears, they could have started 0-3 if they lost this game. But they get the win here in overtime. Jordan Howard with a big day on the ground. And the Bears now move to 1-2, avoiding that 0-3 start. Number 1 thought around the NFL in Week 3 for me was the Buffalo Bills defeating the Denver Broncos 26-16. In the early going, the Broncos have looked like a pretty good team, a pretty, vaunted defense as they've been known for having the last few years. They had a chance to go start 3-0 here. But the Bills moved to 2-1 after this big important win. And now, ladies and gentlemen, if you look around the NFL, this might be, I gotta think this is almost unheard of. There are only, through 3 weeks of NFL football, there are only two remaining undefeated teams. That's it.
Oh my God!
The Kansas City Chiefs and the Atlanta Falcons. And the Atlanta Falcons narrowly escaping with one there. Now, had they lost, had the Falcons lost, then the Lions would be 3-0. So, but just goes to show you, like, it's almost like this is a wide open league. It was wide open NFC conference thus far. That's got to be unheard of. There are many 2-1 teams, especially in the NFC, and it kind of goes to show you like how wide open this NFC can be. Eagles, Cowboys, Redskins all 2-1. Rams are 2-1 and leading that division. Vikings, Lions, Packers all 2-1. That makes 7 2-1 teams, and then the Panthers are 2-1. So that makes half of the NFC right now 2-1. The Falcons are the only 3-0 team. Buccaneers are 1-1, and then the rest are obviously 1-2 teams. The Giants and the 49ers are the only two 0-3 teams in the NFC right now. So this just goes to show you, this is, this conference is kind of wide open in a sense. And we'll see what happens come week 4. But again, that's got to be unheard of. Where only 2 teams remain undefeated in the league through 3 weeks of play already. I'm not too terribly surprised by that. I mean, in the NFC this year, I didn't have anybody winning more than 12 games to begin with. Now, somebody could get hot, get on a roll. You never know. I mean, the Falcons, that maybe they pull out 13 wins this year, but I still saw 11 or 12 for them. As well as a team like the Packers maybe winning 12, maybe the Seahawks winning 12, but they're 1-2 right now, so that they're struggling. While over in the AFC, I kind of had the Patriots kind of winning maybe 14 games again this year with the kind of team that they had. But, maybe they win 12, maybe 13. Just the way that the league might be a little more competitive this year. The way it's, maybe not quite as top-heavy. I don't know. We'll see about that. You never know with the Patriots. They could, for all I know, who knows? Maybe they just go and they win out. But I don't know. Getting back to the Eagles talk here, I wanted to play a little bit of this Doug Peterson press conference before we hit the second break and come back with the closing segment of the show. Kind of a little bit of injury update with Darren Sproles, obviously, who's being shut down for the season at this point. I don't think Doug Peterson gets into the 4th and 8 later until later in the conversation with the media. But it's one of these things where they got away with a win in this game. That's the most important thing. Doug Peterson, if he got the run game going, his play calling, for the most part, was what it needed to be this week. Can't complain too much. I mean, they got off to a slow start, but then they got LeGarrette Blount out there, started running the football, and that's where things started to go well. they weren't having quick strike drives, but they were having some time-consuming drives. And it was eventually they got a touchdown. They weren't scoring a whole lot right away, but they were controlling the game, if you will. They weren't lighting up the scoreboard, but they were pounding the ball on the ground, and they were controlling the game. And at the end of the day, that was enough. Late in the fourth quarter, it was looking like maybe it wouldn't be enough. But, I haven't talked a whole lot about it, but that 61-yard kick, that's great. The play that set that, fortunately, that Carson Wentz passed Alshon Jeffrey that gave him, just enough proximity to kick a field goal. That was great. That was really, really something. Great throw there, and just enough yardage to get the rookie kicker to make that field goal. It would have been nice if he hadn't missed that one earlier in the game that that 50-yarder or whatever. It would have been nice if he made that. Maybe it wouldn't have been quite the same situation. But nevertheless, he made a historical kick for the Philadelphia Eagles. And hopefully with a kick like that, hopefully he can become more consistent. Because he had the leg on that 50-yarder he missed. It just was wide. So hopefully, with a kick like that, hopefully he can keep his consistency going. I don't know what else to say because there's never really much deep conversation to go into with kickers. That's just the nature of it. Snap the ball to him and they kick it and try to get it through the uprights. That's the bottom line. A lot less, technical than offensive and defensive play. The heart of the game, if you will. So, all right, let's play a little bit of this Doug Peterson audio before we hit the break here. Doug Peterson Monday talking to the media.
All right, good afternoon.
Injuries, as Andy would say.
Doug, so Sproles, what have you learned in regards to his knee injury?
Yeah, I can actually confirm that it is an ACL tear. It's unfortunate. Also a broken forearm. So a double whammy on the play, but yeah, unfortunate.
Will you be looking to make a corresponding roster move in terms of getting a running back in here?
Yeah, something we're gonna take a look at here in the next 24, 48 hours. It's a devastating loss, obviously, with with the punt return, the special teams aspect of it, and so we'll look at it. We'll look at everything the next couple of hours, but probably the next day or so.
For now is Torrey Smith the punt returner, and when he came here, I know he hasn't done it. I think he said since high school. How did you guys end up on?
Well, he has done it in practice in his past, and he's definitely a sure-handed guy back there. So he's right now the next guy up.
You have Byron Marshall. Any thought that he could be the guy you go to?
Again, he'll be part of the thought process going forward.
How do you replace a guy like
Sproles is such a unique player. Does a part of your offense kind of go out the door without Sproles?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think what you saw with Wendell, yesterday, and even some things with Corey, it's going to have to be that next man mentality. But I think Wendell, on third down specifically, Corey as well, they're going to have to step up and assume that role. And it's always been the next guy sort of up mentality, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
What do you have on Hicks and Fletcher? You have Hicks and Fletcher?
Oh, yeah, both of those guys are okay. They're going to be day-to-day, however.
Doug, are you confident when it comes to the analytics that you were talking about that there's enough data in the base to, because I think that they study past, success rates and things, that there were enough teams in the past that have kind of, gone for it maybe like on 4th and 8 from while they were in the lead rather than from trailing?
Yeah, no, there's definitely enough data out there because we've now with all the technology you can go back and I don't know the whole. Listen, I don't study it like our guys do upstairs, but there is enough data because you can go back, 10 years and gather a bunch of information and. It really makes the decision making. Obviously, it's ultimately my decision, but it definitely puts a nice light on the decision if you decide to do that.
So who is it that you communicate with in those instances?
Who do I communicate with?
Yeah.
Ryan Pagnetti.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so how often do you guys talk during the course of the game typically?
Well, we talk every day during the week leading up to the game, and then during the game. The communication between he and I is that we even talk on second down. Be prepared for. Maybe expect this. Those questions, those scenarios are beginning to talk. Those conversations are talking actually, on second down. When we get into those situations, those areas of the field where it might be a go for it situation, or it might be a hey, let's get the points here. Let's do this. Whatever it might be, we have those conversations early, actually in the series.
All right, so that's look. there we go at the 4th and 8. Like talking about, we have the technology, this whole history of going for it on 4th and 8 and stuff. Look. It's about feel for the game. And in that situation, 4th and 8, late in the game, or late in the second quarter there, the Giants, having not converted that 4th and 8, and Wentz getting sacked, the Giants end up with the ball in their own territory. And had it not been for the defense stuffing them at the goal line, that's 7 points almost going the other way. I know he was relying on the defense there, but you can't be you can't be relying on analytics and historical stats in that situation. Like, you gotta call up an analytics guy for that situation? Come on. You got to go. You think Bill Belichick does something like that? That's ridiculous. Unfortunately, it didn't bite the Eagles in the butt, but it sure as well could have. Had it not been for the defense maybe coming up big there and stopping them. At the very least, the Giants, they could have kicked a field goal. I don't know. Just punt the ball, pin them inside their own 20, maybe 15. You got a great punter. And, play the field position game. If it's 4th and 8 and there's more time on the clock than maybe what there was, maybe you force the Giants to punt, you get the ball back. I don't know. It's a little bit silly. Maybe it'd be a lot silly if they lost the game. And that's not something I want to see again. Unless they're in a situation where they absolutely need it, and they're down, they're desperate late in the game, and they got to come up with a field goal or with a touchdown or whatever, and got to keep a drive moving. Otherwise, the feel of the game, I don't care what stats you want to throw out. The ebb and flow of the game, that's not the right call. That's the bottom line. They converted the 4th and shorts. That's fine. But 4th and 8 is a totally different ball game. It's the Tyler Werner Show. We'll be back for more to close things out right after this.
Hi there, I'm Hank Hill. Well, I'd like to tell you what Strickland can do to meet your energy needs. You see, at Strickland, the customer comes first. It's kind of interesting. The word customer begins with CU. Well, we don't see you as just another sale, but as a member of our team. I thought you might enjoy 7.5 gallons of pure premium propane. Strickland Propane, the customer comes first.
It's no big news flash that many people, you included, eat as a way to medicate themselves. You can choose to worry about it or not. You can choose to panic about your situation or not. It's clear what you must do in order to make important changes.
5 letters here. RELAX. Relax. We're going to be okay.
In order for you ever to effectively figure out and map how to get to where you want to go, you have to first know exactly where you are starting.
RELAX. Relax.
You have to be willing to change what you're doing. You can change your behavior.
And we're back on the Tyler Warner Show as we are heading towards Week 4 with the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the San Diego Chargers this week. The 0-3 San Diego Chargers, will they pull it out and move to 3-0? That would be a big step in the right direction for the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, training camp in the NBA is underway, and of course last week it came out that apparently Joel Embiid is still, I guess, not fully ready, not fully healed yet, and may miss some, if not all, of preseason in the NBA as training camp for basketball, of course, started last week, I believe, and you know, it's oh man. Now this guy might be missing, you know, and he could be on a minutes restricted. If he's not out there this season, or you know, if they do that again, or in a limited capacity, Sixers may not be a playoff team after all this year. So I will continue to monitor that, you know, monitor his timetable as we move towards, you know, the official tip-off the NBA season. As time goes on here, you know, in between all the Eagles talk, not good. So, and of course, you know, contract time's coming up. Sixers, you know, the extension, that's definitely weighing in on the minds right now. So, I don't know if the Sixers brass and Embiid just, you know, health continues to be a concern with Embiid, apparently. All right, getting back to this Doug Peterson. I didn't mention, I didn't really hit on, I guess, the the Odell Beckham Jr. Unsportsmanlike. First of all, I got the ones on Odell, but there was one on Blunt where I don't understand. Like, sometimes these unsportsmanlike conduct calls or whatever, they're just like, ridiculous. Like when LeGarrette Blount scored his touchdown, because first of all, the play before he scored that touchdown, they didn't say he was. I don't know. I don't see why he wasn't in. Like when he was down, it looked like the ball had crossed the plane. That to me seemed unusual, but of course it didn't matter because the next play he gets in with more ease. So, you know, he was fired up, and he kind of like, he didn't really throw. He like rolled the ball in a sense, and he got flagged for, I don't know. Like, sometimes this is just over the top with how they call unsportsmanlike conducts. But I guess Odell Beckham Jr. kind of had it coming. That kind of getting flagged for unsportsmanlike, when I guess he decided to pretend to be a dog and take a leak in the end zone after scoring a touchdown.
What's the matter with you?
I mean, the guy, he's just great talent, but he could be a good. And then he's like talking to himself on the sideline. I don't know. Let's hear a little more of Doug Peterson's press conference, and to start off, his response towards the Odell Beckham Jr. and I guess some of the touchdown celebration shenanigans, if you will.
The Beckham, his celebrations after the touchdowns in the second half. I mean, does that bother you that someone would come in there and do that? You know, like especially the dog thing. You know, and what are your thoughts on that?
Listen, I'm really not going to comment on that, but our players see it, our fans see it. It's one of those things I think you just kind of file away in the back of your mind, and you just remember those things, and you move on. It's unfortunate. I have to control our guys, obviously, and every other coach has to control their players, but it's something that you don't want to see it, obviously, in the game. I think it takes away from a great play that he just made. Yeah.
Do you think that had anything to do with Malcolm maybe being a little extra aggressive on that pass interference later?
I think it's possible. I think, but at the same time, it was a quick snap, and Jalen was actually caught kind of off guard at the time, and so he was actually behind our defense, our secondary on that play, and Malcolm just knew that it was either going to be a big play, possibly a touchdown, or it wasn't going to be a play at all. So he felt at that time it was a good time to go ahead and have the interference call.
In 6 losses last year, you had the chance to either win or tie in the final 2 minutes, and it didn't happen. What does it do for Carson as a quarterback that he was able to put you guys in position yesterday?
I think it's a great step forward. I think about the conversations we had even back in OTAs and training camp about those incremental advances in our growth process, and this is one of them. Yesterday, and it's great to see our the way we work these situations in practice, the end of half, end of game plays, and they executed it well yesterday, obviously with the 7 seconds and giving us an opportunity to win that football game. It just shows that this team is learning how to finish those games, and then again, that was the message after the game to them was, now we're kind of turning the corner just a little bit and learning how to finish these games.
So, when you look at the life of a kicker, I mean, obviously Jake made that 61-yarder and stuff, but it's also like highs like that, and also a lot of lows that a lot of kickers lose their jobs over. I mean, can you just kind of speak to that, just kind of like the wide range of emotions, with a kicker involved in situations like that?
Yeah, it's sometimes the life of a kicker can be a little bit lonely. You're on the sideline quite a bit, and it's kind of like one of those love-hate relationships a little bit with kickers, and it's great when things work, and it's not so great when it doesn't. But just watching him these last couple of weeks, how he's prepared himself in practice and how he's kicked in practice, he's put himself in that position, and I looked at him in the eyes and asked him if he can nail it, and he without a blink he said, "I got it," and I just felt comfortable, confident and comfortable.
Do you feel anything differently in late game situations this year versus last?
All right, so there was Doug Peterson.
I just felt comfortable, confident and comfortable.
I think he just invented a word there. Comfortable. I can't even say it right.
I just felt comfortable, confident and comfortable.
Confident and comfortable. Comfortable. Never heard that one before.
Come on, that's terrible!
Doug Peterson inventing a new, a fusion of confident and comfortable right there. Little, So anyways, all right, so there was Doug Peterson. There's been obviously a lot of I guess mixed feelings in essence in regards to Doug Peterson with this game, how he, really his play calling got the run game going, stuff like that. And that 190-yard drive that was 18 plays long. And by the same token, you have this 4th and 8 that's hanging overhead. And it just continues to be an interesting season thus far, with its ups and downs with Doug Peterson. I guess some would argue, it's been still a continuation of boneheaded decisions like that 4th and 8, and then some boneheaded responses, such as, we've been 67% or whatever 4th down conversions, and well, yeah, because you're usually converting 4th and short ones. And Carson Wentz has been effective with the quarterback sneak. You got LeGarrette Blount in there as well. It can help, pound those short yardage situations. But that's a different ball game than a 4th and 8. Much better chance you're going to convert a 4th and short than a 4th and 8. So, and then he's referring to this analytics guy from Harvard, apparently, and I don't know, it's just something odd about it. And then you wonder again, where the offensive coordinator, who's not calling the plays, where he equates in all this, in this whole equation, if you will. I don't know. It's tough to comprehend, in essence. So that's where we stand right now. It continues to be and this game against the Chargers, again, they're facing a desperate Chargers team that's 0-3. Kareem Hunt had a field day. He had another field day against this Chargers team. So, almost 10 yards a carry. I mean, the guy is... Oh, man, if only the Eagles could have gotten him. But this is another game where the Eagles, could pound LeGarrette Blount out there. Establish that running game. It might not work right away, who knows, but stick with it a little bit. And it starts clicking. LeGarrette Blount's running like he did last week. Stick with it. Don't abandon it. And maybe don't abandon him in particular as much. Because that was a bit of a head scratcher. Look, at the end of the day, Smallwood, Blount, each getting 12 carries, whatever. They're sharing the workload together pretty much right here. They got Corey Clement as the third string back, I guess. Okay, it worked. But I would still advise that Blount be the primary, used more as the primary back here. And he can maybe really ground out this Chargers defense. We shall see. I mean, the Chiefs ground him out, apparently. And here we go again. Alex Smith. He only dropped back to throw 21 passes. Chiefs won that game easily. So we'll see. We'll see how this is a desperate situation. Eagles going across country here. And I think the Chargers are bound to kind of come out of the woodwork a little bit here. The playmakers on offense that they, I mean they're not outstanding, but nevertheless, I think Phillip Rivers is bound to have a bit more of a breakout game. Melvin Gordon, those guys, Keenan Allen. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this Eagles team goes over there and pulls this one out. We'll see what happens, and we'll discuss right here on the Tyler Werner Show as always. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we will talk to you next week. Breaking down the San Diego Chargers versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great weekend.